Hello and welcome to Self-Care in Stressful Times. My name is Dana Bristol-Smith with Leap to Success. We are a women's empowerment organization based in Carlsbad, California. And the topic of our webinar today is creating healthy boundaries. And this is a very lively topic that we've been exploring in our empowerment circles at Leap to Success, which are follow-on programs for graduates of our Leap to Confidence program. And what we're going to be bringing you today are some insights around setting healthy boundaries with yourself and with others, which helps to foster really good self-care and also healthy relationships. We will also walk you through a mindfulness practice in just a little bit to help you center yourself in the midst of what I'm sure is a very busy day. So I'm so glad that you are giving yourself 30 minutes of respite by joining us in self-care at stressful times. I'd like to go ahead and introduce my co-host to say hello, Kelly Grimes.
Thank you so much, Dana, and I'm thrilled to be here. Boundaries are one of my favorite tools to teach, especially because they're the foundation of how we care for ourselves and nurture ourselves. So I'm really, really pleased everyone's here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly. And now I'm going to ask Louisa if you are able to go ahead and put up our poll, because we like to check in with you every week and ask you, what is the current level of stress that you are feeling right now in your body, in your breathing, in your thoughts, your current level of stress. So we will see, there's the poll. And if you would rate yourself, 1 being the lowest level to 10 being the highest level. And I see the voting taking place now live. And if you're watching us on Facebook or YouTube, just go ahead and jot down on a piece of paper, what is the current level of stress that you are feeling in your body? Yeah, thank you so much. And it looks like we've got just a few more seconds left to vote. And it looks like our average is about a 5. So it's interesting, it's very evenly spread across. We've got somebody as low as 2, and we've got somebody as low, or as high rather, as 9. And that's an awful lot of stress to be carrying around with you. And I hope that it will relieve itself over the next 30 minutes. So as with each of our self-care webinars, we walk you through a guided mindfulness practice. And mindfulness simply means paying attention on purpose. So I would ask for your permission to pay attention on purpose and give yourself an opportunity just to check in with yourself right now. So if you can, wherever you are seated, go ahead and close your eyes or soften them down so you're not taking in a lot of visual stimulation. And now take a nice deep breath in and exhale. I'd like you to bring your awareness to the bottom of your feet and feel the support of the ground beneath your feet. Feel that connection that you have and that support that you always have beneath you. And take a nice deep breath in and release it. Very good. Now feel the support of the chair beneath you, your legs resting on the chair, your back being supported, and take another deep breath in and go ahead and release. And go ahead and now bring your awareness up to your shoulders. And if you're feeling any tension in your shoulders, go ahead and give them a little stretch and see if you can open up your chest a little bit more by pressing your shoulders back. And take a nice deep breath in. Good. And now take another deep breath in as if you're breathing in from the bottom of your feet all the way up to the top of your head. And as you release it, release from the top of your head all the way down to the bottom of your feet. Now go ahead and put one hand or both hands over your heart and breathe in and out. And I'd like to share some words with you from Brian Anthony's, which is actually a jewelry company that makes meaningful jewelry for women. And with each of their jewelry items, they supply some meaningful words. And these words are, you are enough. So go ahead and close your eyes and see if, as I read these words, you can take them in and feel them. You are enough. Even when you are hurting, when your bones feel heavy and your heart is aching, it's okay to feel. It's okay to widen your heart, to move to a place of expansion. There is beauty in your vulnerability. You are enough, even when others make you feel forever less. Worthiness comes from within, so do not build a home for it inside yourself. You are more than others' perceptions. You are more than their words. You are enough, even when you make mistakes. Stop punishing yourself for your imperfections. Immerse them in compassion and recognize that they are part of who you are. It is only with them that you are whole. You are enough. Please remember that you are the only person who defines your value. So be gentle with yourself. Be kind to yourself. Love yourself. You are enough. You are brave. You are capable. You are strong. You are thoughtful. You are empathetic. You are deserving. You are worthy. You are enough. So infinitely enough. Now, with that hand over your heart, go ahead and just take a nice deep breath in again and feel that sense of being enough. And remember that you are the only one who can give that gift to yourself. And that's a gift of feeling that you are enough. Great. Now you can go ahead and open your eyes and maybe wiggle your fingers, move your hands around, move a little bit in your seat. Thank you. And now I'm going to welcome Kelly to talk about setting healthy boundaries. Here's Kelly.
Thank you so much, Dana. What a beautiful practice of placing our hands on our hearts and reminding ourselves that we are enough. I really appreciate you sharing those powerful words. And as we do reflect on embracing our enoughness and our worthiness today, we're going to talk about setting healthy boundaries. Brene Brown wrote that daring to set boundaries is loving yourself enough to risk disappointing others. I love this quote. I have had this quote on a little post-it note just to remind myself both of the courage that it takes, as well as the reminder that setting boundaries is an act of love. So, how do you feel when you hear that daring to set boundaries is loving yourself enough to risk disappointing others? Does that quote resonate with you? What comes up for you when you think about setting healthy boundaries? Is that Do you have a thought like, oh, I love doing that, that's easy? Or do you have a thought like, oh, that's kind of stressful? What sensations arise in your body when you think about that? Are there any signs of stress? Do you notice maybe any tightening of your chest or breathing? Do you have any tension or discomfort anywhere? See, as we begin to set more boundaries in our lives, we usually do experience some kind of stress, whether it's this risk of disappointing others or the stress of maybe not having the words if we haven't consistently set boundaries, or a whole myriad of other emotions that come up around that. Does disappointing others stop you from setting boundaries? If you're wondering, think about the last time that somebody asked you to do a favor or to do something for them when you wanted to say no, but you said yes instead. Can you think of a time like that? And if you can, how did that feel? What was that experience like for you? Did you still feel stress after saying yes to something you actually wanted to say no to? When we don't set healthy boundaries, we often become resentful or frustrated, not only with the other person, but with ourselves, right? That we didn't listen to ourselves. And there's so many reasons behind our fear of disappointing others that contribute to us not setting boundaries. Some of them can be having past trauma or abuse where we've learned to not listen or trust our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own actions. And so when we don't trust ourselves, it's harder to set boundaries with other people, right? To speak up and express what's going on if we're not sure that we can trust our own feelings. Also, many of us, particularly women, have been taught to be responsible for everyone else's feelings. And we might find ourselves thinking it's our responsibility to please everybody around us. And if we think we have to please everyone, it would be hard to set a boundary, right? Because we could disappoint them. And if our job is to be sure everyone's okay and we take care of everybody else's needs, we can definitely have some tension in that when we're looking at how do we take care of ourselves. And this often can lead us to feeling guilty when we do set a boundary. And then it's hard to actually enforce them or uphold them if we feel guilty. We might feel like, oh, I said no, but I really should have said yes to help them. So I'm going to call them back up and say, I can do it. Yet, when we do set healthy boundaries, we end up feeling empowered. And we also end up increasing our confidence in ourselves, our belief in ourselves, and our sense of value for ourselves starts to grow. I've been having many conversations in our empowerment circles with our graduates of our Link to Confidence program. We've been having conversations about boundaries, what they look like, how they evolve and change over time, and what growth people have been able to see. And I heard such amazing wisdom shared, and I'm going to share some of what I heard. These conversations about boundaries are really about these statements of needs and limits that we have with other people or with ourselves. And practicing mindfulness like we did at the beginning of this webinar and like we do at the beginning of every class, empowerment circle, coaching session that we do really is to create a practice of taking space and time to reflect on what we feel and what we need. Having this time of coming home to ourselves just to pause and pay attention, right? And be aware. It's so much easier to set boundaries when we're clear about ourselves. So I love that, we continue to offer these opportunities to do mindfulness practices in this webinar and to find ways of practicing that every day to tune in to your own feelings and needs. I heard from folks that they believe that in really embracing this sense of feeling that they're enough and worthy, that it was so much easier to set boundaries with themselves and to set boundaries with others and to maintain them. And I heard over and over again that although it's challenging at first to start setting boundaries, to enforce the boundaries, that when people did it consistently, they actually found it made everything so much easier. Now, Brene Brown has a quote, and she says, "Clarity is kindness." And I totally believe that is true, especially when it comes to boundaries. Boundaries help create clarity, clarity of expectations, clarity of emotions and feelings, impact that happens when things happen with people. And it just ends up creating a situation where we can have healthier relationships that are more authentic, they feel more real, they're more honest. So, in thinking about clarity as kindness, both for ourselves and for other people, I want to look at boundary setting when it comes to setting boundaries with yourself first, because certainly that is a huge part of it, and then setting boundaries with others. So, with ourselves, there are many different areas that we might set limits or boundaries with our own self. And some of those, like, immediately come to mind is what we consume. And when I say consume, it's not just what we're eating and drinking. I'm thinking what you consume and what you read, what you consume in your social media, what you consume in news, what you consume anywhere. What are you bringing into your life in whatever way? And are those things uplifting? Or are those things draining and add to a sense of hopelessness or negativity or stress that you feel? It's a really good practice after you've watched something just to tune back in with yourself and say, how do I feel? Was that something that, helped me feel more grounded in this moment, or did it actually increase my stress? So what we consume, and you can think about that in lots of different ways. Another area that we might set boundaries in is how we care for ourselves, how we prioritize our self-care. We've talked in the past about putting it in our calendar, right? If you put it in your calendar, do you respect that boundary? Do you respect that time that you put aside for yourself? Or if somebody calls you and says, hey, can you do something for me at 8 o'clock? And you have your self-care on your schedule at 8 o'clock, you say, oh, sure. Like, you put that aside and don't enforce or respect your own boundaries. Exercise is another area. You might have a commitment to take a walk every day. And when you do follow through that, you are actually respecting the boundary that you set for yourself. Some other things might be following through on a significant education or something significant in your life. We heard from somebody in the empowerment circle that finishing her master's degree was definitely a boundary that she wanted to follow through on. That was part of how she showed her value and respect for herself, is to do that. But it could be any project that you're working on. It could be something that you're working on at your house. It could be something at work that you're working on, that you've set some goals and boundaries and things aside that you follow through on. Another thing to think about is what happens to you when a phone call comes in, or a text message, or an email. Do you feel like you need to reply to it right away? Or could you give yourself boundaries to say, I'm going to give some time, later. I'm in the middle of a project, I'm going to finish working on that, and later I'm going to follow up and I'm going to check my email and these other things. Like, that ends up being not really a boundary that we're setting with others. It's more with ourselves. Like, do we feel like we have to respond to everything right away? We've talked about in planning out our day, having some time away from our phone in the morning. And that could be a boundary. Like, I don't pick up my phone for 30 minutes and I do some meditation and some other types of self-care before I engage in the outside world that draws me out, and to focus on the needs of other people. That's another example of a boundary. Another area I was thinking is preventative health care. It may be, going to get your teeth cleaned, or going to get a mammogram, or whatever the things that you need to do for your preventative health, and actually making a commitment and following through. My boundary is that I'm going to do my preventative health, things once a year, or whatever is needed, and actually following through with that. So given those ideas, I'm wondering for you, what is one area that you would like to set a healthy boundary with yourself? And if anybody would be willing to share, I would love to share out with people to give them ideas. What's one area that you are going to set a healthy boundary with yourself? It may be, I'm going to set a healthy boundary that I'm going to take a walk once a day. Or I'm going to set a healthy boundary that I'm going to drink, 6 glasses of water a day because I know I feel better when I do that. Or I'm going to set a healthy boundary that I'm going to do a mindfulness practice a couple of times a day, just pause and check in with myself as a way of knowing what I feel and what I need, because those are the bits of information that I need in order to continue to set boundaries. So you can think for yourself what that is, and if you can say that out loud, to yourself, to other people, we're so much more likely to follow through with the boundary if we've said it out loud. So let's look at setting boundaries with others. This tends to create, I think, a little bit more stress than when we think about setting boundaries with ourselves. And there are so many areas of our lives that we can look at setting healthy boundaries. One is with our family. And certainly when we talked in the empowerment circle, we heard how difficult that can be at times. When there's expectations, when we've had maybe unresolved conflict and other things in the past, to set healthy boundaries. And what I found is when people are able to do that, they feel so empowered. They feel so liberated and so seen when they're able to do that for their own value and worth. Another area is with a partner or a significant other, being able to set boundaries there. With friends, we know that, certainly anywhere, with friends, with neighbors, at work, with colleagues, but finding ways that we can actually let people know how we feel and what we need can be such a powerful way of reinforcing our own support of ourselves, valuing our own selves, knowing that we matter and that it's important that we let other people know what it is that we need. So one powerful way to do that we teach in our Leap to Confidence programs is by using iMessages. Now, I'm sure that many of you have heard of iMessages. I want to bring us back to that as a tool, right? It's a tool for setting a boundary. And the iMessages focus on our feelings and what we need. The statement then helps us take responsibility for our feelings. And instead of saying, you did this to me, which we know, usually brings up defensiveness and argumentativeness with other people, instead of saying you, we say I. We take responsibility and we share something that we might need. It helps us be assertive in a situation and not be passive or aggressive. And this frame of passive and aggressive has really helped me, understanding that passive is caring for other people's rights and needs and not our own. And aggressive is the other end of the continuum, where we're only caring about our own needs and rights and not the other person's. Neither of those end up being fertile ground for healthy boundaries. But being assertive is when we care about ourself and our rights and the other person and their rights. And we're assertive and we're able to share and have these conversations about how we feel and what we need. Being assertive then takes everybody's needs into account, and the iMessage would look something like this. So something happens. I'll use an example of someone borrowing something of mine without asking. And I might say, when you borrowed something of mine without asking, I felt disrespected. In the future, I would really appreciate if you would ask me first, and I would be happy to lend it to you. So it's setting something up where we say, when this happens, so you're identifying what happened versus just saying our need, because if we don't link our need to what happened and share how we felt about it, it isn't as easy for people to understand and to respond to that. So when this happened, I felt whatever it is that you felt. And you might feel upset, you might feel hurt, you might feel frustrated, you might feel confused, curious, however it is that you felt. And then to be able to identify what you need. And I like to say in the future, but you could just say, I need, something else. I imagine much of the time when we're setting boundaries, we might have to set them more than once, usually, in order for people to understand, especially if we haven't set them, that we're serious about it. iMessages give you an opportunity to get clear, right? Get clear about your feelings and get clear about asking for a plan. The process isn't about accusing somebody else, but rather asking for help, and it builds respect when someone else knows how that whatever it was impacted you. They have an opportunity to do something different as well. And it takes time because it's unfamiliar if we haven't been doing it. Some people will test our boundaries a little bit because maybe we haven't set them at all. So are you sure? That's true. It may be hard for people to respect them at first. But I always think that the way that people respond to my boundaries gives me a lot of information. And then I have information to continue to develop the relationship, to set another boundary, to say, gosh, I noticed I set that boundary, and that didn't you didn't ask me again, and you used that thing. And we've already talked about that. So I'm going to ask you now to not borrow anything of mine because you haven't been able to respect the boundary that I set. So there's lots of different ways that it can evolve and change over time. And it's a helpful practice, I think, to write out your I message. And then you might practice it out loud with yourself or a trusted friend. Sometimes that just gets it to feel more comfortable in order to say that out loud. And in all of this, we know that remembering that you are more than enough, just as you are, can support you in setting healthy boundaries so that you can reinforce that affirmation. You might say to yourself, I am worthy of setting healthy boundaries. To yourself, I am worthy of setting healthy boundaries. And when you know that and you're grounded in your enoughness, it is so much easier then to set your boundaries. And the more that you set your boundaries, the more that you will reinforce your own self-worth and value. The more people respect your boundaries, the stronger those relationships will become. And the more authentic you can be, knowing that you are enough just as you are. You don't have to be anything else. And that you can have these kind of healthy relationships by sharing how you feel and what you need. Setting boundaries also allows you to express yourself, protect yourself, and it is foundational for your self-nurturing and your self-care practice. So I am wondering, with all of that, where will you commit to setting boundaries today? I saw somebody in the chat said, I have decided my boundary with myself is I will believe that I am enough. So powerful. So powerful. I heard someone else say that they're going to set boundaries with themselves around eating. And that's wonderful. I think the whole thing with boundaries is recognizing that boundaries give us structure. They reinforce our value and worth. And that we know that boundaries can evolve over time, that we get information from others about our boundaries, and that setting healthy boundaries, I think, is one of the most powerful things we can do because it creates healthy relationships, it creates healthy families, healthy communities, and then it goes out and we can radiate out what it looks like to be grounded and calm and healthy and set boundaries, and risk disappointing others because we know we love ourselves enough to risk disappointing others. So one other thing is someone said that they'll set a boundary over answering texts, emails, and messages and calls immediately, giving themselves some spaciousness. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm so grateful to you all for being here today. This is a conversation that will continue. So let this be the beginning. Bring this conversation out to other communities where you are, other friends, and talk about what that looks like and what support people need. Thanks so much. And I'm going to hand things off to Dana now.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you. That was great. And I think it's a new way to think about boundaries, that we can actually set them with ourselves and make a commitment to ourselves. And I think it really does start there. And I think about our affirmation for the month that, by the way, has brought up a lot of stuff for a lot of people. And the affirmation is, I am enough just as I am. So go ahead and say this out loud if you can with me, and put your hand over your heart. I am enough just as I am. And I think that's a daily affirmation that can be really helpful, and give you maybe the strength and the courage to set boundaries in your life and enforce them for yourself. We found this beautiful quote: you best teach others about healthy boundaries by enforcing yours. And that's from Brian McGill. So, Louisa, would you go ahead and put up our final stress poll? And friends, I'll ask you to go ahead and rate yourself on that scale of 1 to 10. And what is the current level of stress that you are feeling now in your body, in your breathing, in your thoughts? Oh, very good. Wow, somebody's all the way down at a 1. And we've got somebody else at a 7. So we've come down, and it looks like the average of everything that's come in so far is about a 3.5 to a 4. So good job. You have decreased your stress. I'm sure you're breathing a little bit deeper right now. Hopefully there's some less stress and tension in your shoulders. I want to close by sharing with you one of our affirmations from our beautiful Leap to Success. And I have to show you the box once again, because I'm so happy with this. So the Leap to Your Best Life, I hope you can see that well. Leap to Your Best Life, affirmations to help you soar. And the beautiful box contains 48 affirmations from women in our Leap to Success community who have used affirmations to create goals, to motivate themselves, to encourage themselves, and really create what they want to have in their lives. Because what we know is it starts first in those thoughts that we hold. So this one, the beautiful one: I no longer look for validation outside of myself. And another one that I picked up today that says, I am worthy. And I think we all need these kind of reminders. And I will ask Louisa if you'd go ahead and put this in the chat for us. So if you would like to purchase the Leap to Your Best Life affirmations, they are $25 and we will send them out to you. And I just want to tell you a quick story. One of our Leap to Success supporters came in and visited last week in the office, and she has invited us to come speak at her book club and share about Leap to Success and how we're helping women here in San Diego County to believe in themselves, to set goals and move forward to their futures. And she went ahead and purchased 25 of these affirmation decks to give to guests of her book club. So that I thought was really awesome. So they make wonderful gifts for yourself and for those people that you care about. And I will go ahead and say goodbye now and hope that you stay healthy, that you stay well, that you set boundaries for yourself, and that clarity, as Brene Brown says, is kindness. So I'll say it again: clarity is kindness. So be clear about boundaries for yourself and boundaries for others. And I will look forward to seeing you again in September. We will be here the first and third Tuesday of the month. So see you next month, my friends. And thank you, Kelly, for your tips about boundaries today. Bye-bye.